Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Got a lot going on today. Just got home from a long weekend at the coast with my folks, which was a good time. That was a lot of fun. I'm going to pick up a few pieces here before the end of the evening, try and get a little bit caught up. So, what I'm working on here, one of the paint projects that's in progress right now is an XL-500. And this is the starter cover. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, these are a three-tone starter, which really makes it a little more interesting. You got the white base inside of the line right here, all the way up to the fins, and then the starter dome and the fins are the metallic green, and then the rest of it is supposed to be the Homelite red. So I've experimented with ways to do this. They all suck, to be quite honest. It's all a fair amount of work, but what I finally settled on is after the whole thing is primed, I'll get the white in here. The white I'm using is it's a duplicolor, I think it's a GM white. Whatever the case is, it's not hard to coat over the top of when you get some overspray up on the fins or down here. If you paint the whole thing red, which is tempting, I've done that, and then start masking it off and building up from there, you end up having to reprime, and that's just more work, more material, more time, so I'm not going to do that. So anyway, the white is down, so my goal today is to mask off just inside of this line, and then through the fins just enough to cover the white that's on the flat part here, and then we'll put a shield around the outside of just paper and squirt the green on it. So I'm going to turn this off for a little bit because there's no point in you guys watching me put tape into here, but I'll come back as I get to the point of trimming and show you how that goes. Okay, I've got some tape on here, and that's enough to at least get started. So again, you learn some of this stuff through trial and error. I like to use pieces where anywhere there's a curvature, a piece that's more than about 2 inches long of tape is going to tend to wrinkle really badly. Anywhere there's a wrinkle, I can guarantee you it's not going to seal well, and you're going to end up with a paint trace that goes back under the tape, which is really not what you want to find when you peel masking off and you think you've got the perfect project done, and in reality you've got a mess that you have to start over on. So again, all this is pretty loose. You can see that I haven't even pushed it down much. I like to start on the outside body lines, and I use my fingernail to just really push that tape down in there, and you can see how it flattens down and it lays into the groove, and that's important. You want it to get to the groove because that's where you want the paint to end. And since we're trying to mask the white off, this particular time around, this isn't a crucial deal, because we're painting up here, and you're thinking, well, what about this outer edge? Well, I don't want to get the green out there and then have to cover the green with the Homelite red, because then that red is going to end up tending to shade darker where the green paint, the metallic green, has oversprayed. So we're going to try and avoid that, and by doing it in this order on this style of starter, we're going to save ourselves some time down the road, because I'm pressing this into place. I'm just going to use some paper out on these edges, but then when I'm done with that green, I'm going to come back with a razor knife and cut into this edge right here. And it's amazing. You would think, oh crap, you're going to really mess up your primer and paint underneath. Well, you don't. You end up with a nice clean line, and you can peel whatever tape you don't want right back off, and the new paint will fill right up to that edge. And if you've got a good adhesion with your tape, you're not going to have a rough line or really, an obvious seam there. It'll be nice and clean, especially when you get the clear coat over the top of it. But on something like this starter grill, you're going to spend some time. So you see how I've wrapped tape around here and got it as tight as possible without wrinkles. I mean, there's a few wrinkles, don't get me wrong, you can't be perfect, but try to minimize them. And once you've got your tape smoothed on the white up to the edge of one of these fins, you want to take your razor blade and just slice right down the side. Now, I'm not actually cutting paint. I'm just being smart and going right down the side there. And then you can push the tape down in. You go to the other side. Same routine. You push it in, all of a sudden you've got super clean lines there. And all you've got to do is come back and razor off that little bit of tape that's left. Now, if you're thinking an X-Acto knife would be easier, you are correct. Do you think that I can remember to pick one up anytime I ever go to a store? It hasn't happened yet, but it's going to soon, because it would make this so much easier. Well, there you go. That is one fin that is now ready to paint. We got to do the whole thing. So if you're good, and obviously on this one I tried to get too much with that length of tape, so I'm going to have to sneak a little piece back in there. Probably a trimming like that will work. But if you're good, you get roughly 3/16 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch up here that you can slice and then tuck back in there. If you do that with your tape pieces each time, it makes this a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this, and we'll come back a little further down the road. Alright, now we've got the fan fins themselves pretty much done. I'm pretty well happy with that. So we've got to get these edges masked off here, and it's the same basic principle, but the shorter pieces are even more critical here, because anywhere that you try to make a 90, the tape isn't going to lay in flat. So that little section of white that we need to cover up, we're going to try and do it with one piece. I just missed that edge there. That one little spot right there would look absolutely horrible if we don't do something about it. So we will. So once you've got that laid in there nice and tight, get into the edge, just lightly cut the tape. Now, you're not trying to cut metal. You don't have to go crazy, especially if you have a fresh blade. If you get the cuts right, this is going to peel right off. If I see it start to peel that tape, I'd know I hadn't cut quite deep enough. So I'm going to try that again. And being a compound angle like this is not going to be easy. See how it's trying to wrinkle up, and up above it won't lay flat. That's okay if we can just get it to lay into here. Cover that white for us. We'll have achieved what we need to. I'm going to go all the way out to there because I don't want it messing up my previous masking. Okay. That looks decent back in there. I can live with that. I'm going to flatten the tape. Go for this other piece that was under here. That feels like it's loose. We didn't lose any tape. Alright, things are looking up. That line isn't 100% even. There we go. That was a sliver that was probably a 64th of an inch, but you'll notice it. So take the time to correct that kind of stuff. Alright. We'll try and turn the corner, and there's another little wrinkle. I'll slice around. And that is sitting high right there. That spot. And catch the edge. That's close. That might have gotten some of that extra. This is where the X-Acto style knife would be really useful. is reaching back into a spot like this. That's definitely not right. I may have to peel that out and start over. We'll see. One thing I learned a long time ago is if you say, ah, to hell with it, it's good enough. Almost never is it really good enough. Let's see if we can peel this and see what we've got. Okay. Close. This corner is going to give me a hassle like I knew it would. Get that little piece out. Alright. I didn't make that line nearly as clean as I'd like. So we're going to try that yet again. There's a ton of cliches about painting, about prep is the most important part and all of that, and it's so true. You gotta have a little bit of skill to lay down the paint, but your prep work is what's going to make it look like a nice product or a piece of garbage. So, alright, we want all of that to be green up there. I'm going to finish masking this off, put a paper shroud around this outer edge, and we'll come back and get some green paint squirted on there. Okay, here we are. We are ready to put some green paint on this thing. So this is not a how to paint video. I'm going to assume you guys that are watching this already know about proper temperature and prep and all that kind of stuff. This is how to paint a Super XL, XL-12, XL-500 style starter, especially the multicolor ones. So make sure you've got enough paint in your can before you start. I should have just enough here. Good and mixed. Now this is a metallic. I said this wasn't a how-to, but metallic paint is very prone to tiger striping, so you've got to alternate your directions. Now that's next to impossible on the sides of these fins, but up here we can take a pass from that way. We can take a pass from, different directions to try and blend it all together. But I like to start on these by getting one side of all the fins and just spin it in a circle and get all of that at once. Now naturally, because I'm out here thinking about painting, a little breeze just came up. The wind is not your friend. That is one of the best ways you can get a run, because you'll be spraying and the wind current will change and all of a sudden you're putting twice as much paint in place as you were before. That sucks. But this little breeze is pretty minor. I'm gonna go for it. Okay. And you don't want to go too hard. Get a mist going and get a light coat. You'll still see a lot of your gray primer showing through. Part of why I use gray primer. This takes some experimenting to get the right angle, distance. I don't know if you guys can tell in the video, but the breeze is actually blowing it back this way, so I'm losing some efficiency on paint before it ever even hits. Okay, go ahead and get a light coat on there. That first light coat serves as a kind of a tack. You want it to start eating into the primer, adhering, and it provides a base for every other coat. So now I'm going to go back the other direction and get the other side of those fins. It's really tempting to try and get it all in one shot. Almost never works. It's not worth it. Take time to do multiple coats. And let each coat dry a little bit in between. Alright, that's coat number one. So, again, with light in the video, you probably can't see all the detail here that I can. But I see speckles of gray through all of this. It's got a pretty good base to it, but I can definitely see the gray primer showing through. So it'll be at least one more coat, probably two, to get this done. So I'm going to let this tack up for, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, and we'll come back. Okay. Been about 5 minutes. I took a look at this. I'm happy with the way it's drying. Today's about a 70 degree day down here, and that's a pretty good temperature. Between 70 and 80 degrees are my favorite. That's my favorite zone to paint in, because it doesn't flash off and dry too quick, but at the same time you don't have to wait for 2 hours for a coat to dry. I think I'm going to go back and do exactly what I did again. Start with this side. And you should see your gray speckles pretty much go away at this point. Now, one telltale way that you're getting it on a little too heavy, especially with this damn metallic green, is if you see super dark lines in your seams, and then kind of a white where it, or lighter where it's pulling away. And that is just one of the tough parts of painting on an angle, or into a kind of an angled surface like that. Details are one of the hardest things to catch, and some of these Homelite saws have got some intricate details that are just hard to catch. But I'll tell you what, I like what I'm seeing as we come around here. I'm holding my can at a slightly different angle this time and trying to sweep slightly different. Just like I say, to avoid that tiger striping. Some nice metallic in there. Of course, a flat surface, you can get away with a little bit more. Alright. Now folks, by golly, I'm going to call that good. So this left to dry for a day. Today's Sunday, tomorrow's Monday. It should be, according to the weather forecast, another beautiful day. So my plan is to get this extra masking off, mask over this green tomorrow, and do the red paint. So we'll come back to this in part 2.